And we now have a debt issue, a big debt issue globally. So there's a supply-demand issue with this debt. We're in that situation. It is so critical in terms of the supply and demand. When I calculate the supply and demand over the next year and 3 years, we have an immediate issue. You have to take sharp pencils, and you also have to think, what are you going to break along the way? Because you don't want to break too many things along the way, but you've got to do it fast. If you want to do it, I would say, then recognize that you're responsible for the consequences. And if you don't pull this off and there's a problem, that you own it.
Having seen this in smaller countries a couple of times, I wonder if in the United States we ignore the effect of these questions on stability. I mean, what you're really doing is rewriting the social contract when you make certain cuts. Like, people expect, the government's going to do X, Y, and Z for me, and all of a sudden the government says I'm not going to, and then you get political volatility up to and including, violence. This has happened in many, many countries. So is it scarier to you, the debt crisis that you described that's right on the horizon, or the potential blowback from making cuts that, the population really doesn't want?
I think the question is how tolerable it is. I think we are at this big risk thing, and a lot of decisions have got to be made quick.
Yes.
And so you've got to go ahead and be right and make those decisions, and then you find out what's tolerable. I think that probably, since achieving that must be of paramount importance, then you do it, and that's the best thing that you can do. Since 1944, there was a healthy period where debt taken on produced enough income to service the debt.
Right.
That's good. That's healthy.
Yes.
That's not a problem. Everybody benefits from that. Then we got into a period of time through these various cycles that more debt got taken on than incomes. And so when you need income to service the debt. And so that rose for a long time. And the crescendo of that took place in the two big fiscal stimulations that took place first in the COVID, and second in what was a big transfer of wealth where the government borrowed a lot of money, send out checks, and then we had the rise in inflation. Oh, surprise, you send out all these checks.
You weren't surprised?
Of course not. You send out all this money to everybody. What are you going to...
The Treasury Secretary seemed completely shocked by it. Like, really?
I mean, it's basic, okay?
Yeah.
So, okay, now we are where we are in that thought. And that's not just the U.S., okay? That's the world,
yes.
Okay? So what I'm talking about is that it's a world problem, it's a China problem, it's a Europe problem, and it's a world debt problem. Pencil these numbers out, it looks like it's a 3-year type of timeline, and you also have to do the adjustment, the cutbacks, and that make that adjustment. You have to do it when things are relatively good, and you have to do it promptly, because otherwise the debt accumulates and the
yes.
debt problem gets worse. It's like if I'm speaking with you about your heart. I'm a doctor, and I'm talking with you, and I'm saying, okay, Tucker, you have this situation. Okay, the plaque is there. You're in a high risk of this heart attack, essentially. Now, what are you going to do about it? Here are the things. Maybe it's exercise, maybe it's this and that, but in one way or another, you've got to do this now because you're in better health now. Don't wait for this to happen and then try to make it better.
What's striking about your diagnosis, though, is when I hear that, I'm thinking, well, in my 80s, I will address this. You're saying I do it by summer vacation or I die. So
well,
we have a new administration in the United States. And they are setting about, very famously over the last 3 weeks, cutting a lot of wasteful spending. The Doge project under Elon appears to have the full support of the president. If they were sitting here, what would you say that they need to do within the next year to address the crisis you think is right around the corner?